you start seeing through a lot of the social veneer that kind of hides what's really going on, and you see a lot of stuff most people miss. And once you see it, you can't unsee it, can you? Right? Yeah. It's just right there. It's like, how could anyone miss this? And of course, the weird part, for me at least, is when I'm doing conversation hypnosis, and I'm convinced this is so blatant. I feel like I'm being blatant because it's so natural to me now, that that everyone must know, but people just go along with it. They enjoy the conversation. They're so absorbed in the conversation that they don't really realize anything else, right? But the important thing here, guys, is that it's being done as a force for good. All of these examples were people who gained from the interaction. That's a very important point, right? And the reason for it is because, remember, this is all about relationships, right? If you have good relationships, good things happen. If you have bad relationships, well, it's a lot harder for good things to happen. And relationships require time to build up and invest in, right? And when you, if you were to start using these things more for selfish gain, you might get away with it once or twice, but after a while, you get to the point where people stop trusting you, and then that becomes a big problem. As an example from Erickson's life, I'm a big fan of Erickson, as you guys know. I think he was a genius. I think he's a wonderful man. Did a lot of good stuff. But he was a practical joker, and that bit's okay. But he was a little bit too far in some ways, because he enjoyed putting all his colleagues in trance with the handshake induction so much that his colleagues, after a while, were afraid to shake his hand, right? Which sounds like fun, but think about it. You're now a professional, and all your colleagues are kind of avoiding you because they're afraid to shake your hand because they don't want to wake up 5 weeks later thinking, what just happened, right? You know, I think it can diminish the quality of life, because if you are alienating people around you because they're afraid for whatever reason, then well, the relationship you've invested in has just got spoiled. Does it kind of make sense, guys? Right? So, and this is really that. I think John Oberdev said this once. He may have quoted someone else, I don't know, which is hypnosis is anything but a casual relationship, right? And when you invest in people this way, they'll invest right back. You guys have seen it already, right? But then if you disappoint people, if you make some kind of promise, whether it's implied or direct, and you don't live up to that promise, or you violate that promise in a bigger way, the penalty is that much higher. If a stranger gives you bad directions, you'll get annoyed a little bit, but you're not going to be stalking him for 5 weeks to tell him off, right? But if you've ever had like a bad relationship where someone did something very disappointing and maybe caused a breakup, you know how much that hurts and how much the desire to either avoid the person or get even in some way. Different people react in different ways. How that comes back, right? And it's just not worth it. The hassle you will get is not worth it for you. And of course, the damage you do to other people is not worth it either. And the reason I just want to say this here, I know you guys are all in with the whole force for good idea, but really understand this. Once you get good at this, you'll start asking yourself the question, is this the right time to do it? Initially, you'll do it with everyone, that's fine because you're learning skills and so on. And it'll be harder for you to get all the way into the inner sanctum. Remember, the inner sanctum is that little black dot in the middle. The inner circle, you're pretty safe to do most things in. But if you get into the inner sanctum, right, this is kind of like a marriage in some ways, in the sense that it's a very, very intimate relationship. And it comes with a great responsibility as well, right? So there'll become a time, and I hope this time comes for you guys, you'll be so good at this that you will purposely choose not to do it, to actually stay in small talk on purpose, or very the light versions of the inner circle, so to speak. Because going further would be unfair to the other person, because you don't intend to follow up on the relationship. Does that kind of make sense to you guys? Yeah. Right? And you've got to the point, I'll come to you in a second, mate. You come to the point now where your skill set is at that point, right? Right now you can all go out, you can have powerful conversations, which will be very empowering and wonderful and benign, which is great, because you can all get into at least the beginnings of the inner circle. And it's a wonderful place to be. And there, honestly, if you don't do that with most people, that's not a big deal. But the closer you get towards the inner sanctum, the more of a commitment you make for time. Does that make sense, guys? People want to spend more time with you. They'll want to have a closer relationship with you, etc., etc. And you've got to take that really, it's not a toy. You've got to really treat that with respect. Is that an agreement we can all make as a group here, right? Folks at home, if you disagree, send the tapes home. The rest of the training is not for you, okay? All right, so you had a comment over here, so just get a mic over here, please. I'll come in a second.
Yeah, it's a comment on what you just said. I happen to be involved in some online groups where some people have pretty deep personal issues.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing. If you go there and try to fix everything when you're not invited to do it, that basically you're violating the relationship.
Absolutely.
There is a point where of course, you care for them. You would like them to go better. But if they don't ask that, you should not do that. So there is a point where you care for. There is a point where you do it for them, and there is a point where you start to do it for you.
And that's the key difference right here.
Yeah.
Who are you doing this for, right? Is it for your own self-aggrandizement, for your own ego, to give yourself a little pat on the back? Or are you doing it because you care so much that you'd like them to feel better, right? And I agree with you, especially with bigger stuff. There's no problem with offering help, right? Directly or indirectly. There's no problem offering help directly or indirectly. I think it's a good thing to go out there and have conversations which skirt on the inner circle, where you get into a little bit of big talk, a little bit of revivification, nothing earth-shattering, but it's enough that people think, this is really nice conversation. Excuse me. This is a really nice conversation, and I'm really getting a lot out of this. And that's a great place to be with people, right? Beyond that, I like the idea of making offers. So you can offer people an opportunity to be a bigger person. If they ask, well, I don't know how, well, would you be interested in how? Now, there's a contract of sorts. Does that make sense? Or may I give you some advice? Sure. Now, there's a contract of sorts. Does that make sense, guys? Of course, in therapy or in coaching, there's a more formal contract on top of that. And that's a very important thing, because some people actually need their pain, right? Some people need it for a while longer. It's their coping mechanism, because then they don't have to deal with something even bigger, perhaps, right? Or in some cases, here's a quick story for this. A therapist sees a man to stop smoking. Simple session. Stop smoking, guy goes home, his marriage starts falling apart. Any ideas why? You've read the book, so it doesn't count. Go ahead.
The smoking was helping him cope with the marriage, or
the smoking was helping cope
with his wife or something.
Larissa's nailed it. So she's saying that smoking helped him cope with the marriage or connect with his wife in some way. That's exactly what it was. So in this instance, both couple and the people in the couple smoked, and when they smoked, there was a signal to each other to sit down together. That's their time to just sit down and talk. So when they smoked, they would sit down, they'd talk about their day, and in talking about their day, their frustrations would come up, relationship issues would come up, they'd get resolved in the benign context of the smokers. Anyone here ever been a smoker? Right? You get the idea. That's the little smoker's private bubble type thing. And in that bubble, they resolved all their relationship issues. Now the husband is no longer a smoker. So now the wife is signaling she needs to talk for some reason, right? She needs to get something off her chest. So she lights a cigarette. That's the old signal that it's time to talk and release some stuff. And what does he do? He gets up and leaves, because he's a non-smoker now. He doesn't want to be around smoke anymore, right? So you can imagine how that will build a lot of pressure in the relationship. Now imagine you did a stop smoking session, or even covertly with this person, without knowing that. You can see how consequences might ensue. Do you get the idea, guys? Right? There are, of course, ways of dealing with things like that, even if you don't know about those things. But ultimately, you can't impose your standards on someone else. If they ask, great. You can offer, great. You can offer indirectly, even by giving people challenges about, living a slightly richer life and so on. But don't force your opinion or your lifestyle or anything on other people, because that too will tend to backfire in a big way. Make sense, guys? So thanks for that. Pretty heavy conversation for is it Thursday morning? Did you want to add something? Can we have a mic over here? You're going to do a selfie with the camera? Just turn around, have an eyeball.
What I'm really enjoying about listening to other people's conversations, because one of the things as an assistant and when we're walking around is we kind of vanish. We disappear into a wall, so you guys don't even see us. We get to listen in, is that I'm listening to most of you guys develop a new level of care and appreciation for yourselves. And that level of care, that space that you hold for you, just sort of transmits all around you. And so you're going to find that as you're walking around, people want to engage and tell you their life stories, and you're going to go, I didn't even say anything. I didn't even do this.
Yeah.
But that level of care for yourself and appreciation for yourself sort of opens a doorway that you can't see. So I'm appreciating that about all of you.
And just to build on what Johnny said, how can you appreciate others if you can't appreciate yourself?